Let's look at this through the customer's perspectives. I'm curious about modern contemporary styles. How would you break down for someone going, well, what's involved in a modern cellar? What's your, 10,000 foot view of what that entails?
Most of them tend to shy away from traditional wood racking, obviously. The trend nowadays is all towards lots of glass and varying types of metal shelving. So there's pegs, there's metal display shelves, there's some really specific stylistic type hangers and stuff like that are all very modern. The other thing about them is that they tend to be sleek and minimalistic. So it's all about displaying the wine through lots of glass and not a lot of wood structure to interfere with viewing of the wine bottles. Design trend in houses and even in restaurants right now is all more towards a modern cellar, just lots and lots of glass and displaying the wine as the art rather than the racking. It's really meant to just kind of make those bottles look spectacular. The modern style is more about displaying what you have, and it's probably less about storage, although you can still get a decent capacity with metal racking. I mean, they do have 3 deeps and stuff like that, but it is more about the show.
When you go through a design process, like what sort of things would you discuss with a customer? Do you go into cooling units with them, technically, or how does that part of the process work?
Well, once we establish whether or not they want a cooled cellar, or if they're just looking for a grotto or something like that, or a display, once we decide that they want to cool the cellar, the next step is, okay, so what are our options? What is the space? We have to get an understanding of what's involved in the space, what's all around it, what type of unit could potentially work, because there's a whole variety. There's splits and there's through the walls and there's cabinet. I mean, there's just a huge variety of options. So our first step is to understand the space and look at what types of units are possible. Then the next step is, well, what kind of cellar do you want to build? Is it a completely enclosed cellar? So this is all to figure out what our ultimate R values are going to be. What can we do to insulate walls, or are we using glass? All determines the R values. And once we have all that kind of information, we have enough information to go do some cooling calculations, heat loads and stuff like that to figure out what our options are in cooling it. That tells us what size unit we need, and then we figure out what type of unit is going to work best for the particular cellar location, layout, and what our options are to fulfill that. Modern cellars are very popular, but super hard to cool.
What makes those difficult to cool?
Because there's no place to put a cooling unit underneath the stairs. So, and usually they're in the middle of the house, which is far away from any exterior place where you could run a split condenser to. So they can be difficult. We figured them out, but you definitely run up against the limits of how long your line sets can be and all that kind of stuff with many of them.
Let's dig into glass a little bit. Which do you prefer? We'll start there, framed or frameless?
I really don't have a preference. I think they both have their benefits and drawbacks. If your cellar is intended to actually hold wine for a long period of time, then I would definitely steer our clients towards insulated glass, just because it holds temperature better. It's going to be easier on your cooling unit. You will need less of a cooling unit to hold temperature. But the issue with it is that it's larger frames, there's framing, there's obstructions to the view. The frameless glass is fantastic because it's like there's nothing there almost. It's very elegant. It makes it very easy to see what you got going on there. The drawbacks are, though, that it isn't a good insulator. So you usually need to run a larger cooling unit if you want to try to maintain temperature. Other than that, Those are really the main differences between the glass. And that's kind of what we ask our clients right up front. What is your intention here? Are you looking to just show off and display your wine to make a really cool environment for friends and family to enjoy? Or are you a collector? And that really kind of determines which way we go. Some people have just strong preferences, and we'll do it either way. We can make it work. It just the compromises come in different areas. Usually, it's cooling units, and we might have to beef up the insulation in the walls that aren't glassed. There's multiple things we can do to.
Now, are there applications when frameless just won't work? Depending on maybe sunlight or other factors. Are there limiting restrictions when it comes to things like that?
Yeah, so in environments that are very humid, the frameless glass just doesn't work well because it doesn't regulate the humidity. Humidity goes right through, so you end up with basically frosted glass the whole time, and it kind of defeats the purpose and looking at your wine, because you can never see it because the glass is always frosted.
Gotcha.
Especially during the summer. There are some things we can do to try to mitigate that, but it's a difficult problem. What ends up happening is you can't run your cellar as cool, or you have to air condition your house a lot extra.
Yeah.
You have to balance the temperature inside the cellar and outside the cellar to a closer degree to avoid all that condensation.
Gotcha.
So that's the only place we really see a problem with it. It can happen in super cold environments as well, but it's less of a problem there, and it's easier to deal with.
When it comes to a modern design, it feels like you've really got a lot of options you can play with when it comes to different kinds of metal styles, but also incorporating wooden racking into modern design. It seems like, pretty consistent thread. In fact, like most of these have at least some kind of wood element in them.
Yeah, and that's what's so fun about the modern cellar is that you have so many more options. A traditional cellar is typically wood racking. There's some variety of the types of wood racking you can have, but at the end of the day, it's all wood racking. Where this just kind of opens up the playing field so much more, because you can do such a variety of things. Because of that, when you're working with smaller cellars or even displays, it just makes it more interesting because you can do such a variety of things in a small space. I think that's one of the huge benefits of modern cellars, is that there aren't as many rules. You can try out a lot of different things.
Cool.
It's funny, in the design process of the modern cellar, you often start out with the client has an inspiration, and then you introduce them to all the other possibilities, and then they can kind of go haywire. They'll say, "Oh God, I want some of that too. I want some of this too." But that's the beauty of it. We can work it all out. You can add. You can do different things. Like this one, I remember the cable was a last minute ad. They had that after we had done everything else. And they go, "You know what? We really wanted that cable, and where could we put it?"